eligibility. Next is it also ensures a diverse and qualified team is available in a qualified team is available to assist Filipinos in distress through legal, psychological, and social support. The staffing, this amendment also involves the staffing wherein there should be a foreign service personnel, service attaché or officers representing other Philippine agencies abroad, and where available, volunteers or NGOs from the host country. And in this second purpose, it is also in countries also wherein there is highly problematic, um, the government is also required to provide additional specialized staff, which involves or includes Sharia or human resource lawyers, a psychologist, and a social worker. Third is the language. The local language and legal customization aim for effective, culturally informed assistance, wherein there should be additional hires, which can be made locally in the destination country to serve as public relations or case officers, fluent in the local language, laws, customs, and practices. So, we all know that our OFW has this so-called culture shock, wherein there is a difficulty of adapting to the new environment, especially the language. So it is being highlighted in this amendment that there should be a uh, hires or additional hires for the uh, local destination countries we're in. They should be fluent in local language, laws, and customs and practices. Then lastly is to seeks to avoid bureaucratic delays by empowering the labor attaches to coordinate real-time operations abroad. So the labor attache is tasked with coordinating all operations of the resource center and must continuously report and update the chief on mission. Next is our Section 21. Section 21 is not amended by RA 122. So this section is originally from RA 8042. So this involves the migrant workers guarantee loan. So if you answered the quiz, this is question number 1. So the purpose of this section is to protect migrant workers from unscrupulous illegal recruiters and loan sharks by providing them with accessible, legitimate financial support before deployment. It also aims to reduce the financial vulnerability of OFWs and minimize dependence on informal lenders or illegal recruiters who charge excessive fees or exploit workers. So may I ask a volunteer from the class to please read the benefit and the impact? Anyone? Or I'll just call Mr. Balondo. Can you please read the implication and benefits?
Impact and benefits.
Uh,
Financial protection for aspiring OFWs during most vulnerable stage. Help ensure ethical recruitment practices by removing financial independence and illegal recruiters. Promotes safe and legal migration. Assist OFW families during the initial adjustments period when the worker is not yet remitting income.
Thank you, Mr. Balondo. So that were the impact and benefits of this section. So let's move on to the salient provision of Section 21. So first is the silent feature first is the creation of loan guarantee fund, wherein migrant workers loan guarantee fund is established funded with the revolving amount of 100 million from OWA. This section also provides for the fund utilization, wherein the fund acts as a guarantee or security for loans granted to OFWs by participating government financial institutions like Land Bank and DBP. This fund utilization also helps mitigate lending risks for bank, thereby encouraging lending to OFWs on reasonable terms. Third is the targeted loans covered. Um, there is a pre-departure loans which covers expenses such as documentation, medical exams, training, and airfare. And it also has family assistance loan, which provided to OFWs families to cover living or emergency expenses during the initial months of deployment. So kung may niyo plano mag-abroad, char, there is a migrant workers loan guarantee fund that could cover your documentation expenses, medical exams, training, airfare, and also it works and it provides hand in hand to the family assistance loan. So, kung waray pa kamo pakakagpadarahan in your family, this loan can give you a relief from that burden. Fourth is the limited implementing agency, wherein OWA is the primary coordinator of the scheme in partnership with other government financial institutions. Next is Section 14. Section 14 from Republic Act 122. So this section amended Section 23 of RA 142. So this involves the roles of different government agencies as mandated in RA 122. But I would like to focus more on the roles of POEA, OWA, DOH, and LGU. So first is the role of POEA. So POEA, this amendment aims to ensure a regulated rights-based and safe migration system for OFWs through effective governance. So this effective governance is attained through POA's regulation of private recruitment sector, wherein it establishes a licensing and registration system for private recruitment and placement agencies. The POEA also uh, oversees private sector participation in overseas employment. And this effective governance is also attained through ensuring monitoring and promotion of overseas employment aligned with the worker welfare, domestic manpower needs, special attentions to sea-based and land-based workers, especially vulnerable sectors. Aside from which, POA has also the role of recruitment restrictions wherein POEA is prohibited from direct recruitment and placement of OFWs except under government to government arrangements only. So there is a recruitment restriction wherein the POEA is prohibited from recruitment recruiting directly. So the exemption is that there is a government to government arrangement. So POAA can directly recruit and place OFWs. Next is the legal safeguards. So this is also among the roles of POEA. So in achieving this purpose or role, there is an anti-illegal recruitment wherein the agency leads a coordinated program against illegal recruitment with other law enforcement agencies. The agency, medyo nabubulol hit, POEA. The agency conducts pre-employment orientation seminars covering prevention of illegal recruitment, gender sensitivity, and awareness. Third is the ethical deployment practices. This is also among the roles of the agency, wherein it is attained through the pre-employment and employment standards, where it involves the agency's role in managing the entire process from pre-employment to deployment, which also which also aims to secure the best employment terms and conditions for OFWs. This ethical deployment practices also involves the agency's role in deployment recruitment requirements, wherein the agency can deploy workers only to countries with bilateral labor agreements, provided that these countries guarantee protection of OFW rights and that these countries comply with international laws and standards on migrant workers. And lastly, education and empowerment. This is also one of the roles of the agency, wherein uh, they inform migrant workers not just of their labor rights, but also of their human rights. And it is also their role to educate them on how to assert these rights and to seek redress for violations. Next is Section 15 of Republic Act number 122, which amends Section 23B2 of the Republic Act 1842. So this involves the role of OWA. So the purpose of this amendment is to provide institutional support for OFWs by providing legal welfare and repatriation assistance, ensuring effective complaint resolution mechanism, and enhancing awareness of rights and available services. So if you also answered the question in my quiz, this is question number 2. So it is the role of it involves the role of OWA. So going on, the first role of OWA is to provide assistance in contract enforcement. So the welfare officer is mandated to assist OFWs and their families in enforcing contractual obligations by recruitment agencies, employers, or principals abroad. This assistance in contract enforcement also involves the intervention of the welfare officer through representation and may call for conferences or conciliation meetings with relevant parties to resolve complaints or problems. And second, the second role of OWA is welfare program implementation, wherein it shall design and implement welfare programs for OFWs and their families during employment abroad and after returning home. In this role also, the OWA is mandated to ensure awareness and accessibility of these programs and other related government services. And lastly, the repatriation assistance. It is the role of OWA to shoulder the repatriation-related costs, including fines and penalties. Next is Section 16 of Republic Act 122, which amends Section 23 of Republic Act 142. So this involves the role of Department of Health. So the purpose of this amendment is to ensure medical exam transparency, protection from exploitative practices, and equal access to health services through reinforcing the rights, safety, and dignity of Filipino migrant workers before deployment. So these are the key responsibilities of the OH. So first is to regulate fees, wherein health examination fees must be regulated, monitored regularly, and published. This is to ensure fees are reasonable and not excessive. Second is to restrict unnecessary exams, wherein uh, Medical tests may only be required when there is a high certainty of hiring and deployment, and only job-specific or employment-required tests are allowed. So, kung diri ka pa sigurado nga makakagawas ka, diri ka pa a-address for examination. Uh, Third is the ban of monopolies, wherein no single clinic or group can monopolize medical exams for specific destination and countries. And to ensure freedom of choice and ban decking. So this question is also in the quiz. So ban decking refers to the practice of medical clinics or recruitment agencies uh, directing or requiring OFWs to go to specific medical clinics for their pre-employment medical exams, regardless, with the word regardless of the worker's preference. So this ensures that OFWs must be free to choose any government DOH accredited or operated clinics. Next is the expand clinic accessibility, wherein the DOH is mandated to establish regional or provincial hospitals for OFW in order to reduce travel and lodging expenses and to ensure nationwide access. Then, to enforce uniform and international standards, wherein all accredited clinics must use standard operating procedure, and they should also comply with the international health standards. So there are also, this section also mandates for the penalties, wherein there are penalties for foreign employers rejecting valid DOH exams. So the foreign employers will be temporarily disqualified from overseas hiring under POEA's rules. And these foreign employers who reject the DOH valid exams, the clinics that conducted the exam, where it found that the OFW is medically unfit abroad, the clinic that conducted the exam must pay for repatriation and cover deployment costs. So, pag ikaw nga clinic, din magic mo, tapos diri ngayon pasar, aging papasar mo, tapos arriving to the host country, it was found out that diri ngayon hiya fit, so magkakamay-adahin violation or magkakamay-adahin penalty and clinic na nagkandaktan exam. So also, the violating clinics shall also face revocation of DOH accreditation in addition to other liabilities. And the government official or employees who violate this provision will be dismissed from service and barred from holding appointive public office for 5 years, and may also face other penalties under existing laws. Moving on is the Section 16 of RA 122, which amends Section 23 C and D of Republic Act 8042. So this involves the role of government units. So ang aton nga yung mga ada na trabaho ha LGU. So this is for you. So first is the purpose of this amendment is to empower LGUs to inform and protect their constituents by being frontline partners in combating illegal recruitment, raising awareness on legal migration procedures, and ensuring accessible and current information about overseas employment. So the following are the key responsibilities of LGU. So first is to provide venue for PEOS, or the Pre-Employment Orientation Seminar. This seminar is being conducted by POEA and other government agencies or NGOs. This seminar should be held regularly to educate residents on overseas employment processes, risks, and rights. It is also the responsibility of the LGU to establish an OFW help desk or kiosks, wherein this kiosk is mandated or required to provide updated, accurate information on overseas employment. This also helps to educate about job opportunities, legal recruitment, and protection mechanism. This help desk or kiosks are ideally to be fully computerized in order to building to national databases, especially the POEA's list of updated overseas job orders and licensed recruitment agencies in good standing. So that's it. Actually, this is the fourth question in the quiz, the role of the LGU. And moving on, Section 24. Section 24 is an original provision from Republic Act number 8042, which is the legal assistant for migrant workers affairs. So the purpose of this section is to ensure that the legal assistant is equipped with the resources, authority, and tools necessary to deliver effective legal support for OFWs. So it is also in this section wherein it is mandated that there should be a position which is the legal assistant for migrant workers, which is under the Department of Foreign Affairs. This section also enumerates the qualifications of a legal assistant, wherein he or she should have been proven with legal competence and that he or she has at least 10 years of experience as a legal practitioner, and he or she has not been a candidate for elective office in the most recent local or national elections. So let's proceed to the functions and responsibilities of the legal assistant for migrant workers. So first is the formulation of guidelines, wherein the legal assistant is mandated to issue guidelines, procedures, and criteria for delivering legal assistance to overseas Filipino workers. Second is an interagency coordination. The legal assistant needs to build strong linkages with DOLE, POEA, OWA, and other related relevant agencies and NGOs assisting OFWs. This also ensures effective coordination and cooperation for legal support. Third is to administer the legal assistance fund, wherein the legal assistant shall manage the fund established, ensuring that the distribution are made only for legitimate purposes related to legal assistance of OFWs. Fourth is maintain migrant workers information system, wherein the legal assistant shall keep and manage the database or system that contains relevant information on OFWs. And lastly, authority to hire private lawyers. So the legal assistant must be empowered to hire local and foreign lawyers as needed in order to support the effective delivery of legal services to migrant workers. Then let's continue with Section 17 of Republic Act 122, which amends Section 24 of Republic Act 8042. This is the expanded legal assistance network. So the purpose of this section is to strengthen the legal safety net for overseas Filipinos by expanding the pool of available legal aid providers and to enhance the government's capacity to respond quickly and effectively to OFWs in legal distress abroad. So the key points in this section are: first, collaboration with legal experts, wherein it encourages the active participation of private law firms, the IBP, and other legal officials. And second, the specialization on OFW laws, wherein it emphasizes the involvement of those with expertise in OFW-related legal issues, improving the quality of support for migrant workers. And third is the complementary legal services, wherein it recognizes that the government is uh, where it recognizes that the government alone cannot meet all legal needs of OFWs. Hence, the necessity to work hand in hand with the external legal resources. Next is Section 18 of Republic Act 122, which amends Section 25 of Republic Act 8042, or the Legal Assistance Fund. The purpose of this amendment is to ensure a dedicated, sustainable funding source for providing legal aid and defense to Filipino migrant workers, and to strengthen the government's capacity to assist OFWs with legal matters through a financial secure mechanism. So there is also, in this section, it is mandated that there is establishment of the fund and the amount. So a legal assistance fund is created exclusively for migrant workers amounting to 100 million. So the sources of the fund are the following. So the contingency fund of the president, presidential social fund, welfare fund for OFWs, and a portion of the General Appropriations Act. Next is Section 19 of Republic Act 122, which amends Section 26 of Republic Act 8042, or the uses of the Legal Assistance Fund. So ano kuno ang gagamitan han imo 100 million? Bangin mahingad tulahan akap, char. Anyway, patalastas dito. So the uses of the Legal Assistance Funds. So this section ensures that the Legal Assistance Fund is specifically and effectively utilized to provide timely, comprehensive legal protection and support to OFW and distressed overseas Filipinos. So the authorized uses of the fund, the Legal Assistance Fund shall be used exclusively to provide legal services to migrant workers and to overseas Filipinos in distress. So this includes payment for fees of foreign lawyers hired by the Legal Assistant for Migrant Workers Affairs to represent OFWs abroad, especially in criminal charges, cases against abusive or erring employers. Second is to pay for the bonds for OFWs who are temporarily detained abroad. And also it is used to pay for the court fees, litigation expenses, and other legal costs related to the protection and defense of migrant workers. Let's continue with Section 27. This is an original provision from RA 8042. So this is the priority concerns of the Philippine Foreign Service posts. So the key goals of this provision is to provide a unified diplomatic efforts through ensuring coordination and cooperation among embassy staff and agencies for maximum effectiveness. It is also the goal to to have elevated commitment through formalizing the safe through formalizing the safeguarding of OFWs and citizens abroad as the main focus of the foreign missions, and to have institutional clarity, which embeds OFW protection in the operational mandate of the DFA and its overseas post. So the top priority mandate uh, are the protection of migrant workers, the promotion of their welfare, and the broader protection of the dignity, fundamental rights, and freedoms of the Filipino citizens abroad. Though these three should be treated as the highest priority concerns of both the Secretary of Foreign Affairs and all foreign service posts nationwide. Let's proceed to Section 31. Section 31 is an original provision from Republic Act 8042. So amendment this has not been amended by Republic Act 122. So this is the incentives to professionals and other highly skilled Filipinos abroad. So kung may kilala ka mo abroad nga highly skilled, this is for them. So the purpose of this provision is to encourage Filipino professionals and highly skilled workers abroad, especially those in science and technology fields. So, may mga engineering, ganon, mga science and technology, to participate in and contribute to national development. So, this emphasizes the government's commitment that the government shall provide proper and adequate incentives and programs designed to secure their services. The focused area is the public and private sectors. So, yun yun. Next is section 22. So, this is question number 5 of the quiz. Section 22 is an amendment from Republic Act 8042, or the exemption from travel tax, documentary stamp, and airport fee. So the purpose or significance of this provision is that it helps reduce the financial burden on migrant workers and their families. It also facilitates easier and more affordable travel and money transfers for OFWs through exemptions uh, in travel and tax, and airport fee, wherein the migrant workers are exempt from paying the travel tax and airport fee. And in order to avail of this exemption, they must present proof of entitlement issued by the POEA. And next is the exemption on remittances, wherein remittances sent by OFWs are exempt from the documentary stamp tax. The beneficiary or recipient of this remittance must show the same proof of entitlement issued by the OFW. So may nila mga exemptions. Sana all. Next is Section 36, an original provision of Republic Act 8042, or the non-increase of fees, abolition of repatriation bond. So this section is important in order to alleviate financial burden by keeping fees stable and eliminating the bond. Migrant workers face fewer upfront costs and financial strain. And it also ensures employer accountability, wherein the policy holds recruiting agencies and principals responsible for repatriation by enforcing their duty of care, and to support OFW protection and welfare, wherein this provision stays true to the broader objective to protect and promote the welfare of migrant workers. So the silent provisions of this section are the following. Fee freeze. So fee freeze is states that all fees being charged by any government office on migrant workers shall remain at their present levels, effectively prohibiting any increase in these fees. It also provides for the abolition of repatriation band, wherein the law formally abolishes the repatriation bond, meaning the OFWs are no longer required to post a band to guarantee their return. And third is the shift of repatriation responsibility, wherein in the place of bond, the responsibility of repatriation rests in the recruiting agency and its principal or the employer overseas. All costs for returning the worker and their personal belongings must be borne by these entities and not by the workers. Then Section 37. It is also an original provision of RA 1842 or the Congressional Migrant Workers Scholarship Fund. So, ang may mga anak, kan mga OFW para iniha era. So, this section is significant because this encourages focus on fields vital to national development, especially science and technology, which is achieved through the provision of scholarship to deserving migrant workers and or their immediate descendants below 21 years old, and by giving priority to those pursuing science and technology courses or training. So the initial seed fund is 200 million. So this scholarship fund is being managed by the Department of Labor and Employment in coordination with the DOST, wherein both agencies will formulate rules and regulations to implement the program. Excuse pa, tak baby. Okay, let's move on to saan siya naka-add na binubusyo. Let's move on to section 23. Section 23 is an amendment of RA 8042. So, this is the compulsory insurance for agency hired OFWs. So, wherein this provides that all agency hired migrant workers must be covered by compulsory insurance at no cost employment contract. Excuse me, madali lang po. Ano pa? I'm very sorry. Nagtatantrums anak ko ng 3 years old. So, as I continue, so this section is the compulsory insurance for agency hired OFWs. So the following, it is emphasized in this slide that the insurance coverage is at no cost to the worker. So the minimum coverage of this insurance policy are the following. So first is the accidental death benefit, natural death benefit, permanent total disablement benefit, repatriation costs benefit, and subsistence allowance. Uh-huh. It also provided the additional coverage, which involves or includes compassionate visit. This covers the transportation of a family member to worker's location if hospitalized for more than 7 days. It also includes medical evacuation, wherein it covers the transportation to better medical facility if needed, and the medical repatriation, wherein it covers the expenses of the return to the Philippines under medical supervision. So this section also involves the duties of the recruitment or manning agencies. So first is the manning agency has the duty to choose from the qualified insurers to provide authenticated copy of the policy to the worker and submit certificate of insurance to POEA for the issuance of OEC. OEC stands for Overseas Employment Certificate. So this certificate serves as the proof of legal deployment that the OFW was processed and cleared by by the Philippine government. This also serves as a travel exit clearance required by the migrant immigration officers at the airport before the OFW can leave for work abroad. This also serves as an exemption certificate where it grants the OFW exemption from paying travel tax, airport terminal fee, and documentary stamp for remittances. And it is also the duty of the manning agency for the seafarers that the foreign insurance shall be accepted if coverage meets the minimum requirement. It also provides for the penalties, wherein uh, if the agency charges the workers for the premium or uses it to justify extra fees, its license is revoked, and there is a perpetual disqualification of all involved individuals, and this is without prejudice to other legal sanctions. Why? Because it has been emphasized that the insurance coverage of the OFW is at no cost to the worker. So kung nagsukot hira, liable hira. That's all. Thank you for listening. If you have questions, please address it to us, Mr. Digito and I. Thank you. May questions po ba? Or should we repeat the hello, OFW? Sorry.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. May questions? Una ko nakaturog na kamo. Sana,
Um,
sana waray. Charot. Waray.
Thank you for our reporter for um this subject, this topic. Um, may I ask both of the reporters for the migrant workers, how does this law help our women in terms of their safety? What's the purpose of this law?
Attorney, pardon po. Attorney, can you please repeat the question? I'm sorry po.
Am I clear? Klaro
Medyo
na?
po.
Hello?
Okay. Opo.
Okay. So, this law, it encompasses gender, kumbaga ginbubuligan niya tanan. But if we talk about um
gender in this subject? How do they help women in terms of protection, ensuring their safety? What's the purpose of this law for them?
Attorney, it is in Section 19 po of this law wherein there is gender sensitive programs wherein the resource center provides tailored services for OFWs in order to protect them from abuse, gender-based violence, and empowerment of the program. Aside from which po, there are the PEOS or the seminar being held in the LGU wherein the rights and the assertion of the rights of the OFWs are being tackled. So this is an important law because it does not only empower the OFW themselves, but also give more importance or give heavy stress in protecting the rights of our Filipino workers, including the women, wherein there is a gender sensitive programs provided for them. Yun po, attorney.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So if there are no other questions, we can proceed to the next reporter. Thank you. Also to our previous reporters.
Good afternoon. Classmates, nakikita ta akong slide.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes po.
Thank you.
Yes.
Kinukulban ako. Anyways, akong topic is about Republic Act 11210. An act increasing the maternity leave period to 105 days for female workers with an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay and granting an additional 15 days for solo mothers and for other purposes. What is the 105-day expanded maternity leave law? This was signed by President Duterte on February 20, 2019. This law significantly enhanced the maternity benefits previously available. Previously, 2 months lang, bali 60 days la siya. And yan na is 105 days na. This grant 105 days of paid maternity leave for every instance of pregnancy, regardless of manner of delivery, normal or cesarean, or the child's legitimacy status. Also, it has an additional 15 days for solo parents. Pag nag-qualify siya under the Republic Act number 8972, pag nag-qualify ang mother, they could avail this 15 days. And also, there is an option to allocate 7 days to the child's father or an alternate caregiver. Also mandates the salary differential to ensure that it covers the female workers full pay during maternity leave without incurring wage loss due to SSS benefit ceilings. Here, in Section 2, Declaration of Policy, It is the declared policy of the state under Article 13, Section 14 of the 1987 Constitution to protect and promote the rights and welfare of working women, taking into account their maternal functions, and to provide an enabling environment in which their full potential can be achieved. Article 2 State Policies, Section 12 of the 1987 Constitution provides that the state recognizes the sanctity of family life and shall protect and strengthen the family as the basic autonomous social institution, and that it shall equally protect the life of the mother and the life of the unborn from conception. Moreover, Section 17 and 22 of Republic Act 9710, otherwise known as the Magna Carta of Women, provides for women's rights to health and decent work. To achieve this, and in recognition of women's maternal function as a social responsibility, the state shall institutionalize a mechanism to expand the maternity leave period for women workers. This will provide them with ample transition time to regain health and overall wellness, as well as to assume maternal roles before resuming paid work. This act is consistent with local and international legal instruments that protect and promote rights of women. Section 3, the grant of maternity leave. Who are covered by the expanded maternity leave law? It covers all female workers in the government and private sector, including those in the informal economy, regardless of civil status or the legitimacy of her child, shall be granted 105 days maternity leave with full pay and an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay. Enjoyment of maternity leave cannot be deferred but should be availed of either before or after the actual period of delivery in a continuous and uninterrupted manner not exceeding 105 days, as the case may be. Bali, here, pwede i-advance yung pag-file ng leave or pag-take ng leave ng mother. For example, dito is in case may complication sa sa pagbubuntis niya, pwede siya mag-file ng leave. Provided may natitira pa sa leave niya, yung 105 niya, pwede niya magamit yung 45 days na prior to prior to its actual delivery, tapos yung 60 days hanggang sa pag-resume na niya sa work niya. Pwede yun. Maternity leave shall be granted to female workers in every instance of pregnancy, miscarriage or emergency termination of pregnancy regardless of frequency. Bali dito sa law na to, kahit ilan na miscarriages or ilan na pagbubuntis, pwede na maka-avail sa 105 maternity leave. Ay, sa miscarriage pala, 60 days lang kasi based sa pag-aaral nila, 60 days naka-reciprocate na yung mother. Since wala naman siyang babantayan na bata, since there was a emergency termination or miscarriage, 60 days is enough. Section 4, maternity leave for female workers in public sector. Any pregnant female worker in the government service, regardless of employment status, in national agencies, national government agencies, local government units, government-owned or controlled corporations, or state universities and colleges, shall be granted a maternity leave of 105 days. And the an additional maternity leave of 30 days without pay can be availed also. Same with um ay provided pala mag-inform sila uh provided further that the head of agency shall be given due notice in writing at least 40 days before the end of her maternity leave. And provided finally that no prior notice shall be necessary in the event of a medical emergency, but subsequent notice shall be given to the head of the agency. Dito, pag emergency, like, hindi pa, siguro dito, yung sinasabi na no prior notice shall be necessary. Pagka, for example, hindi pa niya schedule para manganak and then nagkaroon ng parang, ano yun, yung may mga simptomas na siya ay manganganak na, hindi na kailangan na mag-ano muna, bigay ng notice doon sa agency. Saka na lang after na. Basta hindi pa natatapos yung yung supposed na maternity leave niya. Same with maternity leave for female workers in the private sector. Ay. Any pregnant female worker in the private sector shall be granted leave of 105 days. Bali, same sila. Ang kaibahan lang ng female workers sa public at sa private is yung sa sa private may mga ano sila ay pasensya po. Nagtutok-tok mga anak. Okay. A female social security system member who has paid at least 3 monthly contributions in the 12-month period immediately preceding the semester of her childbirth, miscarriage, or emergency termination of pregnancy shall be paid her daily maternity benefit, which shall be computed based on her average monthly salary credit for 105 days, regardless of whether she give birth via cesarean section or natural delivery. But it is subject to following conditions. The female worker shall have notified her employer of her pregnancy and probable date of her childbirth, which notice shall be transmitted to the SSS in accordance with the rules and regulations as may provide. Bali, dito, pag nalaman ng female worker na siya ay buntis, she has to notify her employer. And then the employer, responsibility ng employer na i-notify din yung SSS. Na yung empleyado nila is buntis and then posible manganak at this date. The full payment shall be advanced by the employer within 30 days from the filing of maternity leave application. That payment of daily maternity benefits shall be a bar to recovery of sickness benefit provided under under RA 1161 as amended for the same period on which daily maternity benefits had been received. The SSS shall immediately reimburse the employer of 100% of the amount of maternity benefits advanced to the female worker by the employer upon receipt of satisfactory and legal proof of such payment. And that if a female worker should give birth or suffer a miscarriage or emergency termination of pregnancy without the required contributions having been remitted for her by the employer to the SSS, or without the latter having been previously notified by the employer of the time of the pregnancy, the employer shall pay to the SSS damages equivalent to the benefits which said female member would otherwise have been entitled to. Dito, ipinapakita na if ever, kasi hindi natin maano yun, hindi maiwasan na may mga private agencies na hindi nagre-remit religiously dun sa SSS. Pag napatunayan na sila kinakaltasan and then hindi nila nire-remit, yung agency ang may responsibility na bayaran yung SSS dun sa binigay na benefit ng SSS dun sa female worker na nag-avail ng maternity benefit. In case the employee, same lang. An additional maternity leave of 30 days without pay can be availed of at the option of the female worker, provided that the employer shall be given due notice in writing at least 45 days before the end of her maternity leave. Kasi dito, bali 105 days na yung na-avail niya. Before pa mag-end or nire-require dito is 45 days prior ma-end yung maternity leave niya, kailangan ma-inform na yung agency, yung employer niya na that she will avail the 30 days without pay. Workers availing of maternity leave period and benefits must receive their full pay. Employers from the private sector shall be responsible for payment of the salary differential between the actual cash benefits received from the SSS by the covered female worker and their average weekly or regular wages for the entire duration of the maternity leave, with the following exemptions, subject to the guidelines to be issued by the DOLE. Ito, yung mga employer na sinasabi na pwede hindi magbigay nung salary differential are those employers those operating distress establishments, those retail or service establishments, and other enterprises employing not more than 10 workers. And then those considered as micro-business enterprises and engage in the production, processing, or manufacturing of products or commodities, including agro-processing, trading, and services whose total assets are not more than 3 million pesos. And those who are already providing similar or more than the benefits herein provided. Dito, if yung employer na yung medyo may pagkagalante siya or mahilig siya magbigay-bigay dun sa mga empleyado niya, pwede na siya hindi magbigay o kasi it is presumed here na yung nabibigay niya is mas malaki dun sa supposed na salary differential. If itatanong nyo what is salary differential? Salary differential, it is the difference between the full salary of an employee and then the actual um, maternity benefit that was given by SSS SSS. Bali, for example, yung binigay nung SSS is 70,000, and then based sa computation dun sa average salary niya is 90. Ang magbibigay nung salary differential is yung employer. Here in allocation of maternity leave credits. Any female worker entitled to maternity leave benefits as provided for herein may at her option allocate up to 7 days of said benefits to the child's father, whether or not the same is married to the female worker, provided that in the death, absence, or incapacity of the former, the benefit may be allocated to an alternate caregiver who may be a relative within the fourth degree of consanguinity or the current partner of the female worker sharing the same household. Upon the election of the mother taking into account the best interest of the child, provided further that written notice thereof is provided to the employers of the female worker and the alternate caregiver. Provided furthermore that this benefit is over and above that which is provided under Republic Act 8187 or the Paternity Leave Act of 1996. Provided finally that in the event the beneficiary female worker dies or is permanently incapacitated, the balance of her maternity leave benefits shall accrue to the father of the child or to a qualified caregiver as provided above. Dito sa maternity leave credits, hindi siya necessary na asawa or legally married sila. Kahit lang partner, but basta same yung same yung they share same household. Kasi ang doon, ang purpose noon is para maalalayan yung nanganak. Maternity leave for women regardless of civil status. All female workers in the government and female members of the SSS, regardless of their civil status, shall be granted maternity leave with full pay upon compliance with the preceding section. So, may asawa, mawaray, pwede. Section 8. Maternity leave with pay in case of childbirth, miscarriage, or emergency termination of pregnancy after the termination of an employee's service. Maternity leave with full pay shall be granted even if the childbirth, miscarriage, or emergency termination of pregnancy occurs not more than 15 calendar days after the termination of an employee's service, as her right thereto has already accrued, provided that such period is not applicable when the employment of the pregnant woman worker has been terminated without just cause, in which the employer will pay her the full amount equivalent to her salary for 105 days for the childbirth and 60 days for miscarriage or emergency termination of pregnancy based on her full pay. In addition to the other applicable daily cash maternity benefits that she should have received and had her employment not been illegally terminated. Maternity leave credits. The maternity leave credits can be credited on its prenatal and postnatal leave as long as it does not exceed 105 days. I have mentioned this earlier that as long as it does not exceed the 105 days, and provided that compulsory postnatal leave shall not be less than 60 days. So, as I mentioned earlier, 45 days can be used for the um um prenatal leave. Maternity leave benefits for women in an informal economy and voluntary contributors to the SSS. Maternity benefits shall cover all married and unmarried women, including female workers in the informal economy. Female workers in the informal economy are entitled to maternity leave benefits as they had remitted to SSS at least 3 monthly contributions in the 12-month period immediately preceding the semester of her childbirth, miscarriage, or emergency termination of pregnancy. Dito sa maternity leave benefits of women in an informal economy and voluntary contributor. Bali, ito sila yung direkta na mag-i-inform dun sa SSS. Sila yung ano sila, they will submit maternity notification form. Apan nalaman nila na sila ay buntis, kailangan mag-ano sila mismo yung mag-inform dun sa SSS. Tapos, post-delivery, the employee must also submit the proof of childbirth authenticated by a health professional or the Philippine Statistics Authority. And then, dito naman sa Section 11, maternity benefits for female workers who are non-members of the SSS. Female workers who are neither voluntary nor regular members of the SSS shall be governed by the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth. Circular number 022-2014 or the Social Health Insurance Coverage and Benefits for women about to give birth. What is this PhilHealth Circular number 022-14? It outlines the social health insurance coverage and benefits for women about to give birth, ensuring financial access to essential health services during pregnancy and delivery. Under the National Health Insurance Act of 2013, unenrolled pregnant women can receive benefits through various maternity care packages, which include antenatal care, normal delivery, and postpartum services. The circular also introduces a point-of-care enrollment mechanism for uninsured women, allowing immediate enrollment in PhilHealth upon showing signs of pregnancy. Additionally, it emphasizes the importance of prenatal care, stipulating that providers must be accredited to offer these services and detailing the requirements for claims processing to ensure proper reimbursement for healthcare facilities. Section 12. Maternity leave of a female worker with pending administrative case. Ito. The maternity leave benefits granted under this act shall be enjoyed by a female worker in the government service and in private sector even if she has a pending administrative case. Section 13. Maternity leave for female national athletes. In the event of a national athlete becomes pregnant, she will be referred to the team physician or an accredited physician of the Philippine Sports Commission or an obstetrician gynecologist to determine her fitness to continue training. She will be allowed to participate in all team-related activities unless the physician advises that participation is not medically safe or should be limited. Upon medical advice, she shall go on maternity leave until cleared to return to training. She shall continue receiving her allowance and be entitled to the same benefits while on maternity leave prior to childbirth and up to 6 months after, unless she can resume sooner as advised by her physician, in which case she will be entitled to the allowance and benefits she had prior to pregnancy, provided that a female national athlete employed in the public sector shall not receive double compensation or benefits. Here, national athletes, they were given much longer maternity leave. It is because they indulge on rigor in more extreme activities, and it would cause ma-jeopardize their health if they have to observe also the 105 maternity leave lang. Section 14. Non-diminution of benefits. Nothing in this act shall be construed as to diminish existing maternity benefits currently enjoyed, whether or not these are granted under collective bargaining agreements or present laws, if the same are more beneficial to the female worker. Any other working arrangements which the female worker shall agree to during the additional maternity leave period shall be allowed, provided that this shall be consented to in writing by the female worker and shall primarily uphold her maternal functions and the requirements of postnatal care. Section 15, Security of Tenure. Those who avail of the benefits of this act, whether in the government service or private sector, shall be assured of security of tenure. As such, the exercise of this option by them shall not be used as basis for demotion in employment or termination. The transfer to a parallel position or reassignment from one organizational unit to another in the same agency or private enterprise shall be allowed, provided that it shall not involve a reduction in rank, status, salary, or otherwise amount to constructive dismissal. This security of tenure this is also discussed in the labor code, that being a woman, hindi siya pwede maging na dito sa gamit ng maternity leave niya, hindi siya po pwede na i-demote or tatanggalin because it is against the law. It would fall into the violation of the security of tenure. Pag for example nag-leave siya and then ililipat siya, that would indicate na demote siya or something, hindi po pwede. Section 16, non-discrimination. No employer, whether in the public or private sector, shall discriminate against the employment of women in order to avoid benefits provided in this act. It is illegal to terminate the employment of a woman on the grounds of pregnancy or for availing maternity benefits. Section 17, periodic review. The Civil Service Commission, the DOLE, the SSS, the Gender Ombud of the Commission of Human Rights, in consultation with trade unions, labor organizations, and employers' representatives, shall within 1 month after the effectivity of this act conduct a review of the maternity leave benefits of female workers in the government service and the private sector, respectively. Thereafter, they shall include maternity leave benefits in their valuation report conducted every 4 years of the SSS and the DOLE, and every 3 years of the Civil Service Commission, or more frequently as may be necessary, with the end in view of meeting the needs of pregnant women and newly born infants and improving their welfare. Section 18. Penalties. Whoever fails or refuses to comply with the provisions of this act shall be punished by a fine of not less than 20,000 pesos, nor more than 200,000 pesos, and imprisonment of not less than 6 years and 1 day, nor more than 12 years or both. If the act or omission penalized by this act shall be committed by an association, partnership, corporation, or any other institution, its managing head, directors, or partners shall be liable to the penalties provided in this act for the offense. Failure on the part of any association, partnership, corporation, or private enterprise to comply with the provision of this act shall be a ground for non-renewal of business permits. Implementing rules and regulations. The Civil Service Commission, the DOLE, and SSS shall issue the necessary rules and regulations for the effective implementation of this act within 60 days from the effectivity of the same. Section 20, Separability Clause. In any provision of this act is declared unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, the validity of the other provisions shall not be affected thereby. Repealing clause. All laws, decrees, orders, rules, and regulations, or parts thereof inconsistent with this act are hereby repealed or modified accordingly. Section 22, Effectivity. This act shall take effect after 15 days from its publication in the official gazette or in a newspaper of general circulation. The enactment of the 105 Expanded Maternity Leave Law marked a watershed moment in the Philippines' commitment to protecting working mothers. By increasing maternity leave duration and instituting the salary differential mechanism, the law aims to address financial insecurity and ensure that women do not suffer wage loss simply because of childbirth. Proper understanding and compliance with these provisions are crucial not only to promote gender equality and women's welfare, but also to foster a more inclusive and family-friendly work environment. While the law provides substantial benefits to mothers, it is equally important for both employees and employers to be aware of their respective responsibilities and procedural requirements. Thank you. Yan lang, classmates. Any clarifications?